All right, good evening, not good morning. What's up, everybody? I got Jack with me. So, sorry, I said it in the chat this morning. Just internet was going in and out. I really wanted to record. I was so wired last night as the Giants. Not a great game, million penalties, but from a gambling perspective, you can't really get better than that when you got 5.5. And you're sitting there dying on every single play. And then you get lucky at the end, and the Cowboys missed the field goal. So I really did want to talk about this morning, but it is what it is. So I got Jack with me, and gotta get this out of the way real quick before we get to all the games and chat with you, Jack, because I wish that your analysis wasn't so on point and that I didn't feel so great about all the conversations we have because I'm like, man, you know what? This will be a good week. It just goes to show why gambling, you don't do it for a living because you can feel great about the games. You can even, as you're watching the games, you can even be like, hey, I know what the next play is going to be. And yet people are running into each other at high speed. So things can happen. So I know you're looking to get back on track. But tonight you got Miami. Well, this is going to come out probably as the game's going on. But I was curious why you went back against Miami again. So talk to me. You have Virginia Tech tonight, and then we're going to go into some of the big games tomorrow. But why don't we start there? What do you like about Virginia Tech? How do you see the game playing out?
Yeah, I still am pretty high on Virginia Tech, mostly on their quarterback, and that the family aspect of this makes it even more interesting. These two guys are related. So they're cousins, they've known each other forever, both grew up. Drones was the one that was recruited, highly recruited out of high school. Cam Ward was not. And so the roles have almost flipped where Drones is now the guy that has to prove himself. And so that makes it a little bit more interesting on that end when they're getting 18 points. He's going to make sure that they keep it close.
Gotcha. Yeah, Miami feels overvalued. I know in your head you didn't value them high before the season. They're rolling right this second. All right, let's I wanted Georgia, Alabama. So this is where I'd like to start. The thing that I don't understand, and then you can just fill in the blanks for me and tell me what you're looking for. The thing that I don't understand is how in God's name last year in the SEC championship, I just remember the right guard, I feel like, as he's leading for Alabama, just blowing Georgia off the line. Like out of nowhere, Georgia has the best defense. I thought they were going to control the game, and Alabama just pounds them. Why wouldn't they be able to do that again? What's changed since that SEC championship game? Because last time we saw them, right? Like, didn't Alabama just run the football down their throat in the second half?
I mean, it was a 3-point game. I mean, it was a really close game. There were a couple questionable calls, in my opinion, as a Georgia fan. But I mean, yeah, they ran the ball. I wouldn't say at will, but when they needed to get big first downs, they did. This team's different though because they lost their coach and they lost a bunch of guys to the transfer portal. Bond is gone. I mean, they lost a bunch of O linemen. Like, this is a different team. It's a different coach team, and it's not necessarily a bad team, but it's not the same team as last year. So that paired with the fact that this game is now in Tuscaloosa instead of Atlanta, where it has been the past few times they played, makes it a little bit of a different game environment, I would say. I think this game is going to be a little bit more interesting. I am probably going to stay away, but I kind of like the over here. Not the team total over, but the total over there. I do not know if that's going to be a pick or not, but I kind of like that.
What's Milroy? How will Alabama look to attack? What do you think will be different than it was last year?
I mean, they still have some threats through the air. Milrow using his legs, he has a tendency to do that in bigger moments, and it works out for him sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. Kirby will make adjustments. There'll be a spy. There'll be other situations or scenarios where they know that he's going to try to scramble, and I think that they'll have an answer for that. They're going to make Milrow beat them with his arm.
And what about the road factor? Georgia hasn't been there in forever, right?
Yeah, 4 years now. My freshman year was the last time they were there, and Georgia got lost by 20-ish.
So. And that was the COVID year, correct? So it wasn't really the same type of crowd.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. And obviously that was one of the best Alabama teams ever. So
what was that, Alabama? Was that the Mac Jones team?
Yeah. They were dirty. They were really, really good, and we never really had a shot. So this is different. Yeah, it was Mac Jones, Devonta Smith, loaded team.
So Alabama. So what about on the other side? Georgia, they can't figure out what they really want to do offensively. How do they want to attack Alabama? You said it could go over. Do you think Georgia's going to come out? Because I was thinking the other way. I feel like Kirby Smart just wants to run the ball. But no, what do you think?
Well, this game was 27-24 last year, so right on the number, pretty close. I I do think that Georgia will have an answer. I mean, they lit up Clemson. Clemson's a better defense than Kentucky, but you've seen two different Georgia offenses so far. Clemson has proven themselves over the past couple weeks or so that they're not just a footprint. They're actually a contender in the ACC. And so, I mean, obviously big wins against NC State, big wins against App State. Those have not gone unnoticed. And so the Georgia team that beat Clemson by 31 played a lot differently than the Georgia team that beat Kentucky by 1. So it kind of depends. It's almost a catch-22. It almost depends on which offense shows up.
If the game were to get out of hand, do you think it's because Georgia just gets on them early and then Alabama has to throw the ball and then it just gets ugly?
Yes, I do completely.
And if Georgia would have won against Kentucky the same way South Carolina did, 45-13, like some blowout that was kind of predicted, would this be a 3.5-point spread instead of a 1-point spread, you think?
Yeah, I would say 3.5, 4-point spread if Georgia handles business against Kentucky. But Georgia has a tendency to blow teams out after having a close call. So
I love it.
Based on that pattern, like this game should not be close.
Give me last thing I want to talk about with Georgia is how exactly do they spy Milroe, and how would that be different than last year? Is there a linebacker? Is there a safety? Because I hate betting against what I would say is the best player on the field. Carson Beck might, want to argue with me on the other side, but does Georgia have a linebacker or a safety that you're like, you know what, that guy's going to be a difference maker here against Milroe? Or not exactly. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, our secondary has been great. I'll be keyed in on our star position. That's the guy that's usually there. I'm not sure who it is this year. I want to say it's Smell Munden, but not 100% sure on that. But that's the guy that'll be right there in the middle, calling the shots, and I think that's going to be really important.
Yeah. All right. Well, I look forward to that. So, all right, I got it out of the way a couple minutes ago. We're going back there. As you look at the board, what's jumping out at you for tomorrow? Obviously, you'll finalize your picks in the morning. I know you'd like to, your work schedule allows you after Friday night, to really spend a lot of time, and then you go into it on Saturday morning. Are you switching anything up? Do you feel like you've just gotten a little unlucky? What's your analysis of yourself here as you go into the tomorrow?
A little bit of both, honestly. I feel like I haven't trusted my gut as much as I should be. I feel like I'm getting caught in this rotation of finding analytics that back up a side and then just taking based on the analytics. And then it's like, well, your gut says Clemson's going to blow this team out, and then they do. And so that's something that really this week I'm going to take my gut, and I'm not going to factor in the statistics as much. And I think you'll see that in my write-ups.
Sweet. Is there one in particular that you felt like talking about, or are you not quite there yet?
I really like Utah against Arizona. I just think that's kind of one of those don't overthink it plays. Utah's -7. They're just a better football team. Arizona got beat by Kansas State by 30, and then Kansas State turned around and got beat by Utah or BYU by 30.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah. So neither of those teams have proven to be very good, and Arizona's at the bottom of the totem pole there. So I think that this is kind of a blowout. Utah obviously proved that their defense is up to the billing. They're elite. That is an elite defensive unit. And having Avery Johnson as your quarterback, it makes it a little interesting.
Yeah, I think that when you're wrong about a team the week before, it's interesting. It's usually if you double down against them is like that chase aspect. That's me. That's the emotional. Like that's the Titans for me in week 2. It's like, I got to get them now, and I don't want to miss out. And I've seen you do this several times where you're like, you know what? I was wrong the week before, and I see something different. Like you had Oak State last week. But Oak State, if they would have just kept the same quarterback in, it felt like he had a knee-jerk reaction. Maybe they would have been able to come back if he didn't take him out to begin with.
Yeah, that was an interesting game. Almost had it at the end there. But, yeah, like I said, these teams that are able to put their quarterbacks in good situations. Like going back to that Avery Johnson thing, like Avery Johnson at Kansas State, he looked so rattled against BYU. He looked really rattled. And then Utah's quarterback, Cam Rising's hurt again, and they bring in this freshman, Isaac Wilson, and he comes in and he looks calm, cool, collected, and poised. And I feel like that's just a program thing. And back to that Arizona, because it's Arizona, Utah, right? And I'm going to take the Utah side. That will be one of my picks. I'm not sure if Arizona has that comfort factor, even though Noah Fafita, their quarterback, has been there for a year or so.
Yeah, when I look at like the freshman quarterbacks, or like Iowa's always running the football, it kind of reminds me of when you're trying to find these baseball games at the end of the year, and you're like, well, which pitching prospect do I want to take? Like which ran, and I would blindly be like, all right, whoever the Rays bring up at the end of the year, don't bet against him. They seem to always find a pitcher. Like certain organizations just get certain things right. So, all right, I wanted to ask you because you'll have all the games for college football. I don't bet college football. I bet the NFL. We typically are usually, doing more college football, but there's an NFL game. I didn't tell you this ahead of time, but I know it's in your wheelhouse because where you live out there in Denver. But the game I love the most revolves around your Broncos. So before I get to Broncos Jets, the game I love the most is the Buccaneers to beat the Eagles. So I watched the entire Eagles Saints game. I do not need an analysis of the Eagles. I can't be talked off the Eagles. Like I just can't. But what the hell happened last week? Did you watch I'm assuming you watched your Broncos against the Bucks. My analysis with just watching it from a Tampa Bay perspective, you can't get up for every game. You had the rookie quarterback, you're home, kind of a like a dud of a game.
Yeah, kind of a lame duck, yeah.
And Denver just beat the shit out of them. Whereas now Philly comes, half the crowd will probably be Philly anyway. Those obnoxious son of a bitches. And I just think the Bucks are a way better team. But tell me, why did Denver kick their ass? Like from a Broncos perspective, what happened?
Bo Nix, no mistakes, and the defense played really well. And that's a Sean Payton team if I've ever seen one. When they went to the Super Bowl, it was Drew Brees making some plays, but making the right play all the time. And that's what Bo Nix did. He didn't try to overcook. He didn't try to like do more than he needed to. He made the right throw, and Sean Payton, to his credit, let him throw the ball downfield a little bit more. I've been wanting that forever. And their defense held up and played great.
Did you feel that it was so much easier for him to go up against the Bucks defense than it was Pittsburgh and Seattle's? Did you see a noticeable difference in Tampa Bay's defense and their pressure, or did you just see – like, was it a reflection on Tampa? Or can you talk me out of Tampa? Because I really, really like Tampa this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting game to rebound from. The team that's projected to be the worst team in the NFL comes in and they beat you by 20. That's tough. I think the Eagles are legit. I think the Eagles are really legit. They proved it against the Saints last week. But I don't know. I'm not going to talk you out either way. Go with your gut.
All right, so let's lead the Broncos into the Jets because you were right about that. And I was on the wrong side of it. I knew – like Rodgers was perfect in that game. You called it against New England. Now they get 10 days. Your Broncos are having a weird schedule. You aware of this, right? They're staying in West Virginia. They didn't go back home, which is usually interesting. Usually that's like a West Coast to East Coast thing. This was more of, I don't know. I guess it's more convenient, obviously, not to go back to Denver. Go from Tampa to West Virginia. Then you don't have to stay in New York or New Jersey. Just drive there the day of the game or whatever they're doing. Now they're getting bad weather over there. A lot of crazy things happening for the Broncos. What's the read on the Jets? Because you were right about them. Now Denver's getting 8 points. I like Denver too. I thought the Jets like beat up on the poor Patriots. Like they just got every third down. Rodgers was perfect. How good are the Broncos? Do you like this matchup for them against the Jets?
I do. Yeah, the whole weather thing's interesting. I read something today. They actually had practice on the tennis courts at the resort they were staying at in West Virginia.
High school style.
Yeah, pretty funny. But I mean, just in terms of this game, it comes down to obviously our corner opposite of Surtain, Riley Moss. He played phenomenal. He had a great game against the Bucks. He's going to have to do that again because the Jets have a very good receiving core. Obviously, you got Mike Williams, you have Garrett Wilson, you have Allen Lazard. Like those are guys that Aaron Rodgers can get the ball to if they're open. And so our corners and our secondary is going to have to play lights out to keep this game close.
I just like it. To me, if I find a mismatch in coaching, very rarely the quarterback mismatch is obvious. Anything else, it's hard to find like a huge mismatch in the NFL. These guys are so talented. These teams are so deep. But there are coaching mismatches. This has got to be one of the most dramatic mismatches, right? Like Sean Payton, Robert Saleh. Like I'm not sold on Saleh at all. So just 8 points feels like maybe Rodgers pulls it out at the end. And I just don't love the Jets defense. So I do like the Broncos and I like the Bucks. So all right, you didn't talk me out of it. I'm not going to yell and scream about the Eagles being not legit because I'll just speak into existence. I'll yell about it on Monday if I'm right. Did you see how they won the game? It was 3rd and 16, and the Saints ran into each other. Like they were going to lose the game. But
yeah, I mean, but that happens. Yeah, your winning bet slip does not take pictures. So
the Eagles defense is playing better. I'll say my analysis of the offense is spot on, but the defense is. I mean, I don't know what to make of the Saints. Like I don't know about you. Just quick little. I don't know if it's off topic, but I hate looking at rankings or statistics like you were talking about going with your gut until almost Thanksgiving because it's so circumstantial, and especially in football, I don't know how valuable it is because each game feels like a one-off. Where in basketball, baseball, you can find trends. Teams are playing a certain type of way. But I don't know how valuable it is to go into a game and say this team is the 8th ranked offense rushing. This team is 27th ranked, and somehow there's a correlation. That tends to that's just not my way of looking at it. What's your read on that?
Yeah. I mean, it's all like depends on the game, depends on the situation. There's a ton of different things to take into account, and it really is just taking the right things into account, and that's what makes our job hard.
It is. That's why it's not really a job. It's more of like at the end of the day. I think that's why I always say you have to watch the games, and then I did that with baseball, and doing that, and I'm like 39-40 with the Padres. So it's like hell. No matter what you do, you could probably spend all day, all night studying it, and at the end of the day, if you can just be a little bit more right than wrong, that's the fun part. That's why I created this company because it just really bothers me when people pretend as if it's easy to make a lot of money doing this.
It's far from it, very far from it. So yeah, a couple other games I want to point out. Illinois, Penn State should be a good game. I obviously faded them last week against Nebraska. Didn't work out for me. I'm very curious to see how this Illinois team goes up against James Franklin and Penn State. Not sold on the Penn State quarterback, Drew Aller, yet. Not sold on James Franklin, the coach, either. Hasn't really performed in big games, and this is one of those games that's kind of a semi-big game. It's not Ohio State and it's not Michigan, but it's definitely a ranked opponent that's proven themselves.
That game I guess they scheduled that not thinking Illinois would be 4-0 because that's at same time as the Georgia-Alabama game, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's another little funny twist is because, I mean, nobody expected Illinois to be ranked 19. I think they're ranked 19 right now.
What's the best game of the day before we get to Georgia-Alabama? If there's one game you could watch.
Yeah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State. I'm personally going to be on the Cowboys at Oklahoma State. Like them a lot. I really just think Kansas State's a fraud. I think that their quarterback can really only run, and Oklahoma State with Gundy, they are going to force him to make throws. And obviously, like the Utah QB played really well. I don't think Avery Johnson will.
I'm having a hard time getting super excited about college football, like watching any of these. Are you doing player props, or is it legal where you're at?
It is not, no. I had 2 last Friday, ended up going 1-on-1 on those, but I usually stray away unless I see a line that's crazy, and usually at that point it's something that should be like in the minus 120 range, and it's like plus 150, and then I'll take advantage of that.
Yeah, I need something to hang on to. Like the only thing I have to hang on to each week is rooting against Colorado, but I won't bet against them when they're the big underdog. Like that's not the spot. What's your thoughts on them this week? Aren't they getting like 14 against UCF?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I'm not really sure on UCF yet. I mean, came back from 21 down against TCU, which impressive win. But yeah, I'm not really sure here. This is an interesting spot for them. UCF's a good team. KJ Jefferson's their quarterback. He was a highly recruited guy that went to Arkansas for a couple of years. And then when they kind of imploded, he went to UCF. So should be a good game. If you want to take some props, look at KJ Jefferson rushing touchdowns.
Arkansas, Texas A&M this week, right?
Yeah.
Are either of them any good?
No. That's a kind of a toilet bowl game. I kind of like Arkansas there. I like the spot for them. They've kind of rallied around their coach a little bit the past couple of weeks. So
you find yourself enjoying watching the games more on Saturday than Sunday?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I feel like that's really only attributed to going to a school that cares a lot about college football.
That wasn't like that growing up.
My parents both went to TCU, so a little bit. I mean, TCU was always a good, not great school. Won the Rose Bowl one year, and then like almost squeaked into the playoff in 2014. But
Was that the year? Who's the quarterback in that 2014?
that was Trevon Boykin. That was an elite offense. Lost to Baylor in the regular season, and then Baylor lost to West Virginia, and we beat West Virginia. And we as in TCU. And so they ended up 5-6. Cardell Jones and Ohio State snuck in last week, and then they ran the table.
That was the Ezekiel Elliott ran for like 1,000,000 yards in the playoff. Was that the first year of the playoff, I think?
Yeah, very first year. Yeah, TCU 11-1, Baylor 11-1, both left out for 11-1 Ohio State on their third string quarterback. And it worked out. Ohio State was lights out.
It's so funny. From 2012 to like 2014, every big football game, my memory is being at like a casino in Vegas and associating that. That's just like, that was my life. And I cannot get college football games right. That's why I think I'm like turned off from it. And then last year I spent I swear I spent months and months and months researching everything LSU related. I could tell you everything about LSU, every single thing. And the first play, I don't know if you remember, but the first drive of the game, they get like a screen pass against Florida State. They're on the 1 yard line and they don't get in. And then Florida State just rolls them. And I got absolutely hammered. And I'm just like, financially, not like drunk. I just got like, I'm just like, this is so miserable. I'm not betting on these fucking kids anymore. I hate this. Never doing it again. So I don't really, and then being a Maryland football fan, I don't know if you remember the Ralph Friedgen era, but that was like a 2006 ACC championship, I think. And I don't know. We went to the Big Ten, so I'm really mad about that. So I don't really watch the games, but I'm excited for Georgia, Alabama. I don't even know. Like, I guess I'll just root for Georgia. I'm down here, but I want to bet on Georgia. I want to bet on Georgia. I want to find a way to do it. I'm just like so nervous that every college football game I bet on. Thank you, by the way. I didn't tell you for not letting me bet on Baylor. I would have canceled podcasts for a week if I would have had Baylor in that game against Colorado. And okay, last point before we go. I know you got to run. Why are you? Please, I want to be wrong. So tell me. I've thought about it. I think I went on a Reddit post or something. Why do you send anybody on a Hail Mary? Just keep all 11 people back, and they have to have 5 offensive linemen. What's the point of even rushing anybody? Like, at all on the Hail Mary? Like, if I'm wrong, just tell me, but why rush anybody whatsoever? The only argument I saw was like, you can just, then you have all these lead blockers and it's like a kick return. I'm like, all right, I still have 11 guys to tackle. I don't want a Hail Mary where they have 6 guys to go up there and I have 8? That's not the best odds in the world. I may as well have 11.
So depends on the Hail Mary. I kind of agree with you. But do you remember 4th and 31 from last year where Alabama throws a TD in the corner of the end zone on 4th down?
Against Auburn.
That's why. Because Milroe has a gun, as do most NFL and college quarterbacks.
And that was only 30 yards. That was like 25 yards, right?
It was 40 air yards back to the end zone. And he was probably, 5 yards behind the line.
What happened? Auburn didn't rush anybody?
No. He had probably 15 seconds to throw the ball. And when you have a quarterback that has that kind of arm talent, they can make a laser throw from 40, 45 yards out, something on a frozen rope that if they see a guy with a slimmer of hope, they can make that throw and give their receiver a chance to get it. Now, Shedur's Hail Mary is a little bit different, but
how far was that?
The same idea. I mean, probably about 10, 15 yards further than that Alabama.
That was a hell. I don't know how they got it off. I thought the guy was going to knock the ball off his hand. I hate that he's good. I absolutely hate the past 2 weeks. He's been so good against Colorado State. I just wanted to chalk it up to Colorado State, but against Baylor, son of a bitch. I mean, Travis Hunter, he just like, I hate it. And then they won the game, and then he forces the fumble. I'm like, they're meant to win the game. Like, what happened to karma? I'm just so angry. I didn't bet the game, but thank God. All right, so you would okay. I'm gonna go back and watch the Alabama play. I don't quite remember it off the top of my head, but I guess so.
Yeah. So I mean, if you have a quarterback that can kind of create with his legs, that's where it gets interesting.
Or maybe what you're saying is if they have the ability to throw it on a laser, if it has to go so far in the air, then you can keep the 11 people back. But if they have a chance to get it there,
if you're on the plus side of the 50, you need to rush. because they can't get all day because these quarterbacks can make these kind of throws. If it's literally a give it everything you got and try to get it to the goal line, then yeah, there's no reason not to
I
keep
mean, the Bears had one too. They got completed and then at the end of the first half last week. I don't know if you saw that, and then they got tackled at the 1 yard line. Which, yeah, these anyway. All right. So, anything else before I let you run? I appreciate you doing this.
No, go Dogs.
Yeah, when let's hopefully have a good weekend. I will have my picks out. I'll be here Sunday morning. I'll have the pod out Saturday tomorrow with Clayton and J Mart. Jack, I'll see you next week. And yeah, go Dogs, right?
Sounds good. Go Dogs.